Operation Warp Speed. If you think about us, Operation Warp Speed, where they distributed billions and billions of dollars to drug makers buying these drugs in advance. The only good part of Operations Warp Speed, which is really good, right? Which is really good that the Trump administration did, is they sped up FDA authorization. But by buying all the drug in advance, they're the only ones buying the drug. And again, the laws say they're the only ones who can buy the drug. Operation Warp Speed. So it's bad enough that we are now going to be stuck in 6 months of ineffective, horrific distribution of a vaccine. It's bad enough that I, who would be willing to pay a lot of money to be vaccinated, cannot be vaccinated until some government bureaucrat, some government official decides that my random numbers come up and I can be vaccinated. I'm not in the age group. I don't have any pre-existing conditions. I'm not suffering enough. I don't have enough need. And therefore, I'm not going to get vaccinated early. So I have to wait. I can't travel. I can't do all these things. I have to wait until the summer when the vaccine's available to all of us. And yet, so that's bad enough. That's bad enough. I mean, if you don't believe, I'm just going to comment on something. If you don't believe that COVID exists, you really don't know what you're talking about. I mean, just talk to doctors who are actually treating patients who have it. Just talk to people who work in emergency rooms. Talk to people who work in hospitals. Talk to people who actually experience what this virus does to people. And look at the science. Look at the fact that even though some people claim there's no such thing as COVID, and yet we have the genome of the COVID vaccine. We have its genetic makeup mapped out perfectly. And indeed, we had that genetic makeup, and this brings me to we had that genetic. It's not an appeal to authority. It's an appeal to people with experience. It's an appeal to people who actually know what they're talking about versus your completely arbitrary statement, which has no basis in reality or fact. To say, go and talk to doctors who are actually experiencing this firsthand is not an appeal to authority. I mean, you guys read something on some conspiracy website and you think you're experts on this topic. It's just stunning to me, the ignorance that has been and the inability to think that is being revealed by this virus. That is the real virus in our culture, is the virus of inability to think. Hospitals are empty. Hospitals are empty, guys. Just go visit an ICU down here in Orange County, which is relatively, okay, I'm ignoring him now. All right, so it turns out that when a particular Chinese doctor in January understood what corona was, how contagious it was, and how dangerous it was, that a brave Chinese doctor actually put out the DNA of the coronavirus up. He basically distributed the exact sequence of the DNA of the coronavirus. This is in early January. Stunningly, within 2 days after the genetic sequence of the coronavirus was made public. By the way, this doctor has disappeared since, right? 2 days after the genetic sequence had been put out in public, Moderna had a vaccine. So on January 13th, before there had ever been a case diagnosed in the United States, Moderna already had a design for a vaccine, mRNA 1273. The Moderna vaccine design took 1 weekend. It was completed before China had even acknowledged that the disease was transmitted from human to human. By the time the first American death was announced in February, the vaccine had already been manufactured and shipped to the National Institute of Health for phase 1 clinical trials. So think about this. We now have, I don't know, you can argue about how many people have died, but officially 250 plus thousand people have died. We've shut down the economy, suffered short but deepest recession ever. Millions of people are out of work. Millions of businesses are probably shuttered for good. Hundreds of thousands of restaurants will never open. It's still ravaging our population. It's still going on. And yet, a vaccine was available in February. Now, there's a really good article on this if you're interested in digging the details. It's actually New York Magazine, not somewhere you'd expect something like this. New York Magazine, a piece written by David Wallace Wells just this week. It's titled, "We Had the Vaccine the Whole Time." So while people were dying, while in New York City, emergency rooms were packed, doctors and nurses were frantic. Just talk to those doctors and nurses and ask them if the hospitals were empty. There was a vaccine. The vaccine was undergoing FDA required trials, randomized clinical trials to prove that it's safe and efficacious. Trials that took 9 months, 10 months. In the meantime, people are dying. And we're playing at trials. Now, what would have happened in a free market? In a free market, a drug company could sell a vaccine on January 14. And you could buy it. And neither one of you would go to jail. In a free market, the vaccine would carry a label that said, this vaccine is untested. It has not been proven safe or effective in clinical trials. And you would sign away their liability, and you would accept the risk. Once you take it, you're now enrolled in a massive trial because everybody who takes it would be monitored, and you would have this massive trial. If there were side effects, they would be, the drug company, as part of giving you the drug, would want to monitor you. They would get information. And while this trial, this massive trial, because a lot of people would take it, particularly after New York, what we saw in New York and in Italy, people would be taking this. The drug company would be improving the vaccine because they'd have all this information. They wouldn't be running these, and maybe on the side, they'd also be running a randomized trial because some of the private rating agencies, the equivalent of an FDA, the private FDAs, would require that in order to get their certification. In the meantime, they would sell it off certificate. All that real-world testing would provide a lot more data. Their data would be applied. By the way, one of the things I didn't say about the vaccination before, the 90-year-old who got this vaccine, it's fascinating, right, for a couple of reasons. One, 90-year-olds were not in the test group. That is, the vaccine has not been tested on 90-year-olds. Indeed, very few old people were in the test groups. And yet, they're the people getting it first. Some of these 90-year-olds are going to die from the side effects because their system is so vulnerable. Their body is so weak. They could die from the side effects. The last people you want to give this to are older adults. But anyway, that's a side. Now, the drug company could release the vaccine. We could all choose to take it. We could all choose to take it. And we could all take the risk or not. And we always have the option of not taking the vaccine, of staying home, of locking ourselves away, or taking the risk of getting COVID, which I think a lot of young people probably would. But imagine a world in which we had that option. Imagine a world where we could choose whether we take the vaccine, how much risk we take, what to do once a virus hits. I mean, if a drug company sold something they knew was unsafe and ineffective, they would lose billions of dollars. They would be sued and they would be completely destroyed. Completely destroyed. Oops, what am I doing? If you look at these trials that Moderna and Pfizer and other companies have put out, the side effects will be minimal. There are side effects, but they're relatively small. You could have saved millions of people's lives across the world. And yes, there would have been a risk that one of these vaccines was bad and somebody got really sick and some people died. But they're dying anyway. And more people are dying right now. Many, many more people than would die from a bad vaccine. The idea that we need to be safe in front of risk of disease, safe in front of, before the risk of death, safe from what exactly? From evil drug companies pumping us full of either a useless drug or a drug that killed us? Really? That's how drug companies would make money? Is by killing us? Or by giving us something ineffective? But this is again altruism. Altruism leads us to distrust business, to distrust science, to distrust anybody who's doing the work. Altruism says that businessmen, profit seekers, are going to lie, cheat, steal. They're going to do really, really bad things. So imagine if we'd been using the vaccine since they were developed. Again, no recession, no lockdowns, no shutdowns of our lives, and no 250,000 bodies just in the United States. Now, the FDA approved these vaccines super fast, but way too slow, way too slow. The FDA is the federal death agency because it has on its hands the deaths of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Because it didn't allow, that's the kind of world we live in, allow us individuals to take risks that we choose to take in order to get a vaccine on our timetable. And maybe our doctors would have advised against it, who knows? But that's our decision, not the government's, not the central planners. So the benefits of FDA protection are the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. That's the benefits. So the costs of FDA protection are unbelievable. We never talk about the costs. Nobody is interested in the costs. And I'm not even talking about all the other diseases that the FDA is involved regularly in having people killed by not letting people take drugs. And of course, I'm not even talking about the other alternative that has existed for months, which is home testing. Cheap, quick, fast, easy. Home testing, which the FDA has still not approved. Not the kind of home testing that would make a difference. The FDA stood in the way of every significant development here. And I'm not blaming the FDA, it's the whole system. The whole system is geared towards preventing us from making choices for ourselves and from benefiting from the best advancements in healthcare. And you should be outraged. We should all be outraged. I mean, literally, I didn't know this, that the vaccine was ready. The vaccine was ready, at least mapped out, not in production, but had been developed within 2 days of the release of the genetic code. It just stupefies. And again, where are the free market advocates? Where are all those free market economists? Where are all the believers in the freedom of the individual? Where are all the capitalists who should use this as an opportunity to demand these laws be changed? That the FDA's mandate, even if you want an FDA, if you need an FDA, you don't. And FDA by definition violates individual rights. But the FDA mandate could be left just to make sure that companies are not selling drugs, committing fraud. It could be an agency that just is involved in making sure it's not committing fraud. Aspect of the policing. Where's the outrage by the free market world? Instead of advocating for conspiracy theories around COVID and around elections and around all the other BS, where is all the outrage and where is all the advocacy for true liberty, for true freedom? Let people decide. And if you think Corona is doesn't exist, then fine. In a free world, it doesn't matter. You suffer the consequences of your own beliefs. By the way, Milton Friedman, Milton Friedman would be horrified by you using his name to advocate this nonsense. Horrified. But so be it. All right. Not a lot of Super Chat questions, so now's your opportunity. Ask about anything, vaccines, Corona, anything you want. Just put a dollar amount next to it, and I will get to it. We've got a few questions here I will cover, but let me see something. Yeah, I don't think any of them were $20 questions, so I'll just do them in the order received. But don't forget to like the show before you leave. Right? We've got many more people watching the show that have pressed the like button. So please press the like button. This is one of those shows that I hope you will consider really sharing, because this is the kind of issue where we should be at the forefront, and when you should be brave enough to let the people in your universe know where you stand. This is the kind of issue where we can make the free market case on a relevant issue right now. It's not political. There's nobody in the political space. Nobody in the political space. Right? Nobody in the political space who is advocating for these ideas, not left, nor right. So it's not TDS or anything like that. So it's time to advocate for your ideas. It's time to advocate on particular issues. And it's time to show the world how a free market would handle all of this. In a free market, there would have never been a pandemic. In a free market, there would have never been a recession. And there would never have been a pandemic because we'd be vaccinated for it. Or enough people would have taken the vaccine, then it would have never spread the way it did. Because the science we have today is stunning. Is amazing. But we don't get a benefit from it because government monopolizes it, because government controls it.
What we need today, what I call the new intellectual, would be any man or woman who is willing to think. Meaning, any man or woman who knows that man's life must be guided by reason, by the intellect, not by feelings, wishes, whims, or mystic revelations. Any man or woman who values his life and who does not want to give in to today's cult of despair, cynicism, and impotence, and does not intend to give up the world to the dark ages and to the rule of the collectivist brute.
All right, before we go on, reminder, please like the show. We've got 163 live listeners right now, 30 likes. That should be at least 100. I figure at least 100 of you actually like the show. Maybe there are like 60 of the Matthews out there who hate it, but at least the people who are liking it, you know, I want to see a thumbs up. There you go. Start liking it. I want to see that go to 100. All it takes is a click of a thing. Whether you're looking at this, and you know, the likes matter. It's not an issue of my ego. It's an issue of the algorithm. The more you like something, the more the algorithm likes it. So, you know, and if you don't like the show, give it a thumbs down. Let's see your actual views being reflected in the likes. But if you like it, don't just sit there. Help get the show promoted. Of course, you should also share, and you can support the show at JeronBrooksShow.com/support, or on Patreon or Subscribestar or Locals. And show your support for the work, for the value hopefully you're receiving from this. And of course, don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, even if you just come here to troll, or even if you're here like Matthew to defend Marx, then you should subscribe, because that way you'll know when to show up. You'll know what shows are on, when they're on. You'll get notified, right? So yes, like, share, subscribe, support. Like, share, subscribe, support. There you go. Easy. Do one or all of those, please.